So here's part 2 of my series, The Age of Deceit, and how the ruling class has misappropriated every pillar of society to restrict our freedoms. Now, I did want to discuss some comments in my prior video just about Richard Dawkins and Bill Maher. So why Richard Dawkins and Bill Maher annoy me so much is not because their views differ than mine, because I think that's very immature if you just don't like someone because of their differing views, because you should always try to listen to what other people say and challenge your own views again to either reaffirm those views or to understand that perhaps your views may be a little skewed and need some readjustment. The reason I find them so annoying is because their arguments are really entirely flawed and they mislead a lot of people with flawed arguments. That's my only beef with those two people, is because I find their arguments to be highly flawed, but yet they're so arrogant in the way they present their beliefs, like they are always right and everyone else is wrong. I also wanted to address the comment by the person that felt I was belittling atheists, because in no way am I belittling atheists, because that would be an immature way to address a difference of opinion. And I am tolerant of people that disagree with me, of course, but what I'm not tolerant of, and that was the point of part 1 of this video, is a misappropriation of religion or a misappropriation of logic. So all I was saying is that the most common argument I have heard by many atheists, not all, but by many atheists that deny the existence of God, is that there is no scientific proof. But just because you cannot prove something does not mean it is not true. That is one of the a false argument that is easily debunked by anyone that has studied logic. So that is all I'm saying, because I've talked to Christians about my video, and they don't feel like I'm attacking and slandering Christians because I say George Bush used Christianity, misappropriated Christianity to slay millions of people and commit war crimes. So that is the point I am trying to make. I mean, Jesse Ventura is an example of an atheist I actually like. He's a really intelligent guy. I share a lot of the same opinions with him. He seems to be very awakened to what's going on in this world. So all I would suggest is, if that is the reason, and you're an atheist and you deny the existence of God, if the reason is because there's no scientific proof, and you understand, not being able to explain to you that that is a flawed argument, then all I'm doing is asking you to further, more deep and question your beliefs and look inward further, and perhaps you may change your beliefs, because I am constantly doing that as well, because I don't feel like it's my job to prove to someone that there is an existence of God, even though that is my firm belief. Because I believe the soul is immortal and that we live for eternity, our soul lives for eternity, so everyone will eventually come to the truth. So that is the point I wanted to make. That's all. Okay, let's turn our attention to social media, because even social media has been misappropriated. Because social media really should increase our communication, but what I found with smartphones, what I found with the biggest social media websites in the world like Facebook, that they have actually regressed our ability to be human with each other and to communicate with one another. Because there are certain people I know, I don't even have a Facebook account, but there are people that I know out there that use Facebook that would think, hey, if you don't have at least 300 Facebook friends, you're a loser. But yet, how many of those 300 friends are really true friends to these people? And there's tons of people that have 300, 400, 500, 1,000 Facebook friends, right? So a recent study by Duke University in the United States showed that on average, the average American only has 2 close friends that they feel they can confide in when they need to talk about something important in their life. They have 2 on average. So they found out 25% of them said they have nobody they can confide in if they really need to talk to someone about a certain issue that was bothering them, or a critical issue, or passing of a family member or something that really upsetted them. They only had 25% of Americans surveyed by Duke University said they had no one they could confide in personally. So with this explosion of social media, is actually degrading humanity and the ability for us to communicate with one another. So that is kind of crazy, because the people that probably say you're a loser if you don't have at least 300 Facebook friends probably are the 25% that have nobody they can truly confide in if they really need someone. So everything has been misappropriated. Now I'm not even going to go into some other areas like music and the arts, which typically have been used to educate and to uplift and to inspire people during revolutionary times. Now those in power have also misappropriated and dumbed down music and the arts, where you have artists like Damien Hirst just making polka dot paintings and Jeff Koons making porcelain sculptures of the Pink Panther with naked women selling for millions and millions of dollars, versus other inspirational art like Guernica from Pablo Picasso. And music, even the evolution of hip-hop, when you had great storytellers like Tupac Shakur that would try to inspire people by observing what was going on, what was wrong with this community. Now you have 2 Chainz, you have Lil Wayne, you have Lil Jon, you have Kanye West. If you listen to their lyrics, they're so idiotic. So music today is being used as a weapon against people to distract them and to turn them to consumerism, which is a huge problem. Because when you have people, because I told people when I first graduated from college many years ago, that I worked in some of the poorest socioeconomic neighborhoods in Philadelphia, and you would see young kids, walking around with Prada wallets or Gucci belts that were $300-400 a pop, but yet their mom didn't have money to keep the telephone service on in their homes. And I know this for a fact because I would see this in some of the clinics I worked in. That makes no sense whatsoever, because what is that Gucci belt doing to make your life better when you don't even have a telephone in your home, so you can't call around for jobs, or you don't have enough money to pay electricity? It is funneling people's attention into the wrong things and actually degrading their quality of life rather than making it better. So again, I know there's lots of people that are going to listen to this video and say, oh, you're just talking rubbish, that's nonsense. They're not going to believe it, only because you will not challenge the false paradigms that have been set forth by those in positions of power. But as I always say, then question everything you hear from me. But not only should you question everything you hear from me, and I'll give you resources in the links below. If you're watching this video on YouTube, look at the YouTube description. I'll give you plenty of sources for you to research the information that I'm talking about here. But not only that, if you truly only get your information from mainstream media, you really need to start questioning everything you hear. And I mean everything, because I would say 99% of it, at least, is generally rubbish and propaganda. So if you start questioning just a little bit of it, you will discover how wrong the information that is being given to you is, and then you'll start questioning more and more, and that's the way you awaken. So I hope, again, you learn anything from this. As I said, any video, any piece of information you see on the internet that really helps to expand your mind, please pass it on to at least a minimum of 10 of your friends, and then hopefully those 10 friends will pass it on to 10 of their friends, and that's the way that we can really start expanding humanity again and taking the power back from those in power that misappropriated every single part of society today. Now, if you've never been to a place like Sacsayhuaman, I would really encourage you to go if you ever have the chance. Several years ago, I went to Angkor Wat in Siem Reap, Cambodia, and it was really amazing to look at the massive temples built with massive blocks of stone that were built thousands and thousands of years ago. It's really a huge difference just looking at a photo of it as I'm showing you here and seeing in person, because seeing in person will probably be enough for you to understand what I'm saying in this video, that there's a lot of knowledge that's being suppressed and hidden from us and purposely and deliberately flipped upside down by those in power to control us. Because if you see some of these wonders that were built thousands of years ago, and now today a lot of archaeologists even think a lot of the dating of a lot of these better known sites, like I said, the Great Pyramids, the Sphinx, Stonehenge, could possibly be wrong just because archaeologists were trying to slot them into what they believe humanity to be capable of at that time. But there is a site about 6 miles from Urfa in Turkey called Göbekli Tepe that is also massive in structure and is been carbon dated. So this is accurate. Has been carbon dated by artifacts found at that site and the sediment to 11 to 12,000 years ago. So that is just fascinating to me. And this is the kind of information, if you never heard of Göbekli Tepe, if you never heard of the other site in Peru that I told you about, it's because the media doesn't want you to know, or those in power that control the media don't want you to know. They'd rather have you talking about Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus than really gaining true knowledge. Knowledge that could transform yourself, make you a better human being, and knowledge that could also be used collectively to transform society into a more compassionate, kind society versus the cold, distant society we are today. And finally, I just want to conclude this video with the misappropriation of society's values, which again, I think those in power have deliberately done. Because if everyone just lived by the golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated yourself, then life would be a lot happier, a lot more satisfying, because bankers wouldn't rape, pillage, and plunder other people's wealth if they would not want that to be done to themselves. But of course they go ahead and do it, and they don't care about the negative ill effects upon society that they spread, which sometimes manifests itself very tragically, unfortunately, in elevated rates of global suicide. So let me just give you a couple of examples of how much the values of society have been misappropriated. By that, I think we all agree that most people would want to elevate family, friendship, loyalty, compassion, intelligence to the top values of society, kindness. But instead, those values kind of get pushed to the background, pushed to the bottom, while other false, fake values like status, materialism, consumerism rise to the top. And it's so much so, I'm going to give you a couple examples that, one time I was, I can recall, and when I used to live in Philadelphia, that I would always say hello to everyone. Like, it didn't really matter to me how much money they made. If they were a good, decent person, then, I exchanged pleasantries with them, and beyond that, would engage them in conversation. So, for example, sometimes I would be working late, and I would see the housekeeping, everyone else in the office be gone, and housekeeping come in, empty out my trash, and I start a conversation with a person, ask them about their family, see what was going on in their lives, and just have like a civil conversation like you would with any normal person, because some of them were really cool people. And they would tell me, hey, you're the only one that talks to us. Everyone else acts like we're invisible, like we don't count. And I didn't really get that. I don't understand why people would separate people into different classes of who I'm going to talk to, who I'm not going to talk to. In the morning when I come in, one time we were building a new healthcare center, and the construction people, I would always see them, and I would always stop and just have a brief chat with them before I went into the office. And again, they would say, hey, all the doctors at this health clinic, they ignore us. They just walk in like we don't exist. You're the only person that says hello to us. And I found that odd. But, that was like many, many years ago when I lived in Philadelphia. But even now, today, right, like in the place where I live, when I see housekeeping, I'll talk to them. And I actually had a friend that laughed because I said hello to them. He's like, why are you saying hello to them? I was like, why wouldn't I say hello to them? I see them every single day. Why am I going to ignore them and act like they're invisible? Because, they're good-hearted people. They work hard to provide for their family. They show up to work every day and work a long day. So why would I go out of my way not to acknowledge their presence? And this is kind of how society is ill today. And you see the same thing, like this the same person that would say, why am I saying hello to housekeeping if they, well, for example, I know a few people that are kind of famous. So when I lived in Hollywood, I got to be friends with actors that would show up in Hollywood movies. And then, the same people that ask me, hey, why am I talking to housekeeping here? Or why am I saying hello to these people? Well, if I said hello to someone famous and they saw me, they would say, oh, how do you know that person? And they would be all starstruck, which is crazy because people are human beings. Just because someone is famous does not make them a better person than someone that is not famous. That is just ludicrous. That is completely ludicrous in my mind. And that is, again, how the values of society have been misappropriated, how people in power have elevated certain people to be admired, even though there's no reason to really admire them unless you know them in real life and you know them as a person and you say, oh, these are qualities they have that I admire. But there's no reason to admire someone you don't know. But that's, again, how the values of society become twisted and misappropriated. But as always, I always encourage everyone not to blindly follow anyone, not to blindly believe anything you ever hear, and to do your own research. So again, I provided some links below in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube, where you can go and look at some of these links that provide evidence and proof of what I'm saying, and then make up your own mind. So the one thing I would encourage everyone to do, if you're skeptical of this, you do your own research, and then you find that these things I'm talking about to be true, I would encourage all of you to share this video with at least 10 people. Not only this video, but any video that you come across YouTube that expands your consciousness, expands your intelligence, expands your awareness of reality. I would encourage you to share that with at least 10 other friends, because this is the way that we expand the consciousness of everyone in the world. Is that we just can't watch things that we say, oh, that's great, I get it, and then never share it. So definitely, if this strikes a chord with you, share it with at least 10 other friends. If you come across other videos on YouTube, share it with at least 10 other friends. Now lastly, I just want to talk about why I spent over an hour making this two-part video. And the reason is because those that are in power, ruling over governments, ruling over the banking and monetary system right now, are engaging in a war over your mind by misappropriating everything that I've spoken about. Misappropriating art, music, religion, politics, the monetary and banking system, media, news. So there's a war on your mind to take control over your mind right now. And if you don't understand this, then my feeling is there's no way you're not going to get fooled if you're an investor into investing into the wrong things that the bankers are trying to get people to invest into right now, which is overheated, massive bubbles of real estate in certain regions in Asia, massive bubbles in the stock market in the United States and in Europe. And instead, you're not going to take what you need to do, because they've been trying to sell everyone that gold and silver are no good anymore, and that the run is over with, it's not going to go any higher, and they're trying to keep people out of these assets. So they're trying to fool everyone, flip that paradigm again, and push people into assets that will destroy their wealth at the very top, and instead keep people away from assets that are highly undervalued right now, that they've engaged in a lot of propaganda to sell people into not believing in these assets, and these assets will rise in the next few years tremendously. So I wouldn't even be surprised if there is one final blow off top in these bubbles, and then again the bankers will just pile in the next month or so to try to get everyone invested in these assets as much as possible, as much of the wealth, so they can all destroy their wealth and take it from them when they pop these bubbles. So in essence, how the ruling bankers have kept the price of gold and silver down is now they have created a totally fraudulent, bogus market in spot paper and spot silver prices by creating a paper's derivatives markets that they use to control the price, whereby they can dump millions and millions of paper ounces of gold, paper ounces of silver, onto the market within 10 minutes, within 15 minutes, within half an hour, within a couple hours, that craters a price time and time again. And they use that mechanism to fool people because they're not selling any physical gold and physical silver. So what they have, in essence, they have done is they've created a divergent reality in the prices of gold and silver from what is really going on in the physical gold and physical silver markets, which is a raging bull market, which the media never talks about. You know, the massive demand coming from Asia, from China, from Russia, from the Middle East for gold, for physical silver, for other assets. The massive demand, if even extremely wealthy billionaire retail investors that are pouring their money out of fiat currency into hard assets. Like, you know, there's been record auction at Sotheby's, I believe, where they just sold 10 individual paintings each for over $20 million a piece. And so there's been massive money pouring into fine art, into other hard commodities like diamonds. There's been record sales for diamonds recently. And gold and silver will follow. The only reason is they don't concentrate. The bankers don't concentrate on suppressing the price of diamonds, suppressing the price of fine art. They only concentrate on suppressing the price of precious metals like gold and silver. So, you know, the whole reason I spent so much time delivering this message is because in order to get these parasites that rule the world out here and to replace them with good people, we have to shift the consciousness. See, the consciousness is almost like visible light and infrared light. And at the other end, at the wide ends of the spectrum, these are the wavelengths of light that people cannot see. So this is the infrared light, and and people can only see the narrow spectrum of visible light, and this is where people are dwelling now. But this is the illusion, and in the fringes where the infrared light is the reality, and this is what we need to move people from the mainstream into the fringes where reality really exists, so they can see the frauds that are ruling this world for what they are. And this is how we can seize the power back, because again, there's 7 billion of us, only a few thousand of them that are trying to control everyone. Now think about even the 5 senses that we're taught in school, right? We're taught 5 senses are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, right? That's it, 5 senses, right? But yet, what is the most important part of bringing all the senses together is thought, right? Because thought is basically what will process all those other senses and integrate all those other senses. So into creativity, into ideas, into movements, into building stuff, manufacturing things, and whatnot. And so it's very interesting that thought isn't taught as one of the 5 senses, because all the senses, it's a faculty to perceive and to process an external stimuli. So obviously thought is necessary to do that, but yet we are not taught that thought is one of the most important senses, or even one of the senses that exists. But I would say it is, because when you think about hearing, you cannot see sound waves, right? So thought, in the same sense, maybe all original thought does not originate from yourself, because you could be pulling thought. Thought can be thought of as energy as well. So perhaps we can pull thoughts from the knowledge of society today, the knowledge of past societies as well. So these are all kind of concepts. I don't want to get too esoteric here, but obviously if the people, the ruling class, can control thought, then they can control you. Currently I'm reading these 2 books about Leonardo da Vinci. Here's one that is basically documents all his manuscripts of his drawings and various inventions, and here is the second part of this volume with his complete paintings. Now, the very interesting thing is Da Vinci's probably a person, I mean, obviously, not probably, but he's definitely a person that was not confined by the deception of the ruling elite, and he was able to free his mind from all of that. So if you look at his body of work, it's absolutely astonishing what one person could come up with, as far as even his manuscripts for all his inventions. He was so far ahead of his time that they didn't even have the technology to test some of his inventions at the time. So he built like flying machines, and then hundreds of years later, when the technology was available, they built the flying machines and they actually flew. They actually worked. And if you look at even just like some of these drawings here, right, you could see, if you take a closer look, that he would protect his work by actually writing. He taught himself how to write backwards. So if people stole his manuscripts, they wouldn't be able to read, or maybe at that time they weren't able to figure out what this script was that he wrote, but he basically wrote backwards. So he was obviously an incredible person with the capacity to expand his abilities to the fullest. And I think actually that many human beings also have that. I mean, obviously Da Vinci was a rare person, but I think that many people have that capacity as well, but never realize it because they have been tunnel visioned by the misappropriation of the various pillars of society today by the ruling elite. So then in the end, some people say, well, why would you want to know reality anyways? And I think it's important to understand reality because reality leads to growth. Because as a human being, you're either progressing or you're remaining stagnant or you're regressing. And obviously, I think most people would want to progress in life. And that's a funny thing because we always hear change as a negative thing. We say we're creatures of habit. We're comfortable with doing stuff in a habitual manner, and we don't like change. But I don't understand why change is always sold as a negative thing, because I think change is positive. And again, that's another way to keep humanity down, is because change is sold as a negative thing. I can recall a story when I was in graduate school, so it's about 5 years after I was in college, and one of my college friends came and visited me, and at that time he said, "Man, you changed." And I could see that he was saying, like, I changed in a negative way, because change is rarely thought of in a positive way in society, and that's backwards, because I always think change is positive. And so, because even when you have something negative happen to you, you can use it as a learning experience, so you can always grow from either positive or negative things. So in this particular instance, I was training really heavily in martial arts, and I could tell because I was training heavily with weapons at the time. So my friend, just because he didn't understand it, right? He thought it was strange, and that's why he was scared by this change, only because he didn't understand it, right? So some people never even want to take the time to understand it. But here's the thing, martial arts is always going to change you, because what martial arts does, if you're not just training in katas, and my instructor actually made us go at it. So we would fight at least once a week. It really tests the core and the essence of your character, of your spirit, really, of who you are. So a lot of people misunderstand martial arts and just think it's a physical thing, but it's a development of mind, body, and spirit, really. So your spirit becomes a lot stronger, and it's tested when you have to fight another human being. So in fighting every single week, your spirit is developed and molded, and so is your character. And people don't realize that what you learn in martial arts, what you learn about yourself, because you learn an incredible amount about yourself from the physical and spiritual testing that you put yourself through. That extends to the rest of life. So your spirit becomes stronger. You are more confident in your emotions, and in fact, I would always say a lot of my really, really good friends came from the martial arts scene, because they're humble in a way, and a lot of people mistake humility with weakness, but not at all, because I've met extremely humble people, humble martial artists that were extremely confident at the same time. And it's almost like that, I always say there's just not two kinds of people, but there's two kinds of people that are noticed in a crowded room. One is the flamboyant person that's either going to dress in a really flamboyant manner, enter the room in a very vociferous, boisterous, and loud manner, so everyone around him notices him or her. And then the other person that gets noticed in a crowded room is the one that's kind of silent. and there's something really enticing about that silence, and that comes off as basically there's a extreme amount of confidence you can pick up in that person's silence, because that silence comes from humility of not having to be ostentatious in their mannerisms to gather attention, because there's no need for it, because what that person has learned is how to let go of ego. Because my first martial arts sensei always told me, the one thing I'm going to do if you stay with me is to teach you how to let go of ego, so you'll no longer have any fear of death. Because he said fear of death only comes from your ego. So once you release your ego, then you have no fear of death, you have no fear of any attacker. And that kind of silence, I probably could say in my entire lifetime, the amount of people I've detected that within, I can count on both my hands, probably less than both my hands. So and those are the people that I know understand everything I'm talking about in this video. Now, another way I can describe this stillness, which I've sensed in just a handful of people in my entire life, is the way professional athletes describe the leap from collegiate athletics to the professional level. Because a lot of them say when they make the leap, say for an NFL quarterback, the leap between college and the NFL is light years. So they say that the sport just moves so incredibly fast, and it takes them a while for the sport to slow down, where they can make good decisions, where it becomes more instinctual. And as a martial artist, I understand that too, because there are times when I first started sparring, everything seemed to move so fast. The punches, the kicks, everything, the throws that came at you, the submissions. But once you became more skilled, then I specifically remember sparring sessions that were quite incredible, because I felt like that my partner was throwing everything at me slow motion. So the punches were coming in slow motion, the kicks were coming in. Actually, I felt that I could sense what was coming before it even happened, because everything became instinct and I wasn't thinking anymore. So I was just feeling how everything was moving. And that's kind of the stillness of life that you receive once you understand how those in power have misappropriated money, have misappropriated banking, have misappropriated politics, religion, education, the news, the media. So life slows down, because if you don't understand that, I think life goes in a blur sometimes, and it's really hard to see the important things in life. So what happens is you get caught up by the flashy people who really aren't going to inspire you or add anything of value to your life, or you get caught up by consumerism and trying to gather material wealth, which is just evanescent, which comes and goes and is not going to provide the sustainable fundamentals that you need to have a fulfilling life. So this is the kind of, the stillness allows you to see the proper flow of life. And that's why I believe that this is so important a concept to understand. And the last thing I want to say about people that have this incredible stillness, there is a certain amount of, I would say, love that these people have, love for humanity, compassion, and that contributes to the stillness. So, in a lot of my videos, I tie a lot of my videos together. So, when I talk about shaming and humiliating bankers in the Ask JPM video that I made a couple weeks or a week ago, then really, if you take what I'm saying in this video, because love is such a much more powerful force for change than hatred, then I would say when people are shaming and humiliating bankers to get them to change, come from a place of love, because that will be a lot more powerful. Your love for humanity, your love for the future generation, your love for creating a better society. Because it's very easy to come from a place of hatred, and I do understand that people hate these bankers that have ruined their lives. But in taking some of the actions that I have put forth in some of my other videos, I think you have to realize, as hard as it may be, that coming from a positive place is going to affect a lot more sustainable change than coming from a negative place. So that's all I want to say in regard to that. Okay, so thanks for watching again. Please take a step every day to make yourself a better person, and as always, remain intensely curious. Thanks for watching.